From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm News Channel 5's political analyst, Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. With impeachment still dominating the news in Washington and across the nation, especially with the House hearings now public and being televised across the country, this week we bring in Democrat Larry Woods and Republican Bill Phillips as our guest on Inside Politics. We'll ask them to analyze what we've heard and learned so far and where things may be going from here. We'll also discuss the 2020 presidential race in the context of the impeachment probe, along with the involvement of new Democrats possibly coming into the presidential race. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Glad to be here, I think. We'll see.
It seems the witnesses so far that have been in these latest impeachment hearings, now that they're being televised, are giving out information that's already been gathered behind closed doors in testimony there, and their depositions even before that were released or leaked to the media. So, Bill, why are we having these open sessions? Are the Democrats just checking a box for transparency?
Well, I think they're checking a box is a good way of putting it. You know, there's been so much cry about these closed-door meetings. They're going, okay, we'll do it out here and let everybody see the laundry.
Well, Larry, is the idea, though, at least from the Democrats' point of view, that if they put it on TV and have it all over the country, that the stuff will become more real and perhaps they'll start building more support for impeachment and particularly start addressing that Republican wall of opposition?
I think that's what some of them in Washington are hoping, but Nancy Pelosi and the leadership, they've looked at the polling when Nixon went through this, when Clinton went through this. The polling numbers aren't going to change until we get right down to the finish line, whatever that might be, and may not change even then. It's 48% support impeachment, 44% oppose it. The country's simply divided. They're not going to change that with public hearings.
Speaker Pelosi this week, first of all, said that she thought the president was guilty of bribery. Is that going to be one of the charges? Instead of talking about quid pro quos all the time, we're going to talk about bribery?
Absolutely. You know, the key to Speaker Pelosi saying, look, I think the impeachment count ought to be about bribery is, number one, it's specifically addressed in the Constitution. That is a grounds to impeach and remove a president. Number two, bribery is the offer of something of value to a public official type. It's not the receipt by the official. So the fact that President Trump failed in what he was trying to do is not a defense.
Bill, I want to read you a quote from Speaker Pelosi this week and ask you if this indicates that there's still a wiggle room for the Democrats to try to get out. She said, we haven't made a decision yet to impeach. That's when the committees will decide that. They'll decide what the articles are. Are they leaving a back door to maybe take this and do a motion of censure on the president, or is it just too late to back out now?
Oh, I think that's another example of checking the box. We're going in here, we haven't made a decision, we're going to be a fair judge, we're going to look at the facts, then we'll decide what we should do. And so that's part of her process of open government and fairness.
Larry, should people be confused? Normally, if in the past these impeachment efforts have started in the Judiciary Committee, we're still over in the Intelligence Committee. So is that just to make Adam Schiff feel good? He's had a big part in all these investigations. What's this all about? It is eventually going to get to Judiciary before we actually get down to articles of impeachment.
Yes. Whatever vote the Intelligence Committee takes, it's then going to be referred over to the Judiciary Committee for a vote on impeachment. I think Speaker Pelosi made a judgment call that Chairman Schiff would do a better job of running public hearings for the show purposes than Nadler or any of the others that she could have chosen.
I don't often agree with the Speaker, but she's absolutely right. He does a great job with the show.
Yeah. And that's what it is, which irritates me.
Bill, the Republicans, not only on the committee, but outside the committee, they don't often say what the president says in his major defense. The president continued to say, read the transcript, it was a perfect call. Why do the Republicans don't want to get close to that? They'd rather use something else like, well, there's really not much to this. Nobody really lost any aid, so what's the big deal?
I think probably a lot of the Republicans, if not all of them, are pretty much in the dark of what really happened, and they're not sure what to say. And you look back at past impeachment process, it starts out on this subject, ends up on this subject, and a lot is found out in the middle. And I think they're being just really careful.
Larry, we've just started on these public hearings, but we're already seeing one day of a new call that's come up that somebody overheard. There now appears to be at least two aides who heard this call that the president made with one of the other, I think with the EU ambassador, where he asked about the investigations. Are we going to see some surprises in this? Is this part of the Democratic strategy? Are they holding back some stuff we're going to see in these hearings that we didn't hear before behind closed doors?
Well, I think that's another reason Pelosi wants a public hearing, because as more people watch and hear and talk about the hearings, more people in Washington and connected places wake up and think, wait a minute, I heard something about this. I heard somebody talking about it on the phone or otherwise. I was in the hallway when Representative so-and-so said X, Y, Z, and therefore you do bring out new witnesses, but the chance that one of the new witnesses is going to be dramatic and important is pretty slim, I think.
Well, let me ask you this question. A lot of people, we talk a lot about Ukraine. Ukraine is not something that has featured prominently in the discussion of foreign policy in this country. It may be very important where it is, particularly fighting the Russians. But is what happens in Ukraine important enough to impeach a president?
Yes, because what's really all about is Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, is at war with Ukraine, has been for 5 years now. Vladimir Putin wants to embarrass Ukraine, wants to make Ukraine look like a chaotic third world country. I mean, Nancy Pelosi is missing the boat by not making the story about Vladimir Putin rather than Ukraine.
Why is Nancy Pelosi not making, or why are the people in the committee not making Russia the speaker has said all roads lead to Putin when she talks about the president, yet that's not doesn't appear to be in those roads leading towards impeachment.
Well, they're trying to build a speed bump along that road to Putin by taking on Trump, who they see as Putin's best buddy.
And he is. I mean,
yes.
Around the world, in terms of where we are and what's happening to our reputation and power around the world, we've got a lot of crises going on, and I don't mean he should be impeached for them. I'm just saying it's bad policy choices.
We have all these longtime foreign service people coming up, and frankly, whether you believe them or not, are risking their careers to do this, and yet at the same time now they're being having their characters imposed, their political things. Is that going to be a winning strategy for the Republicans, or particularly when they start going after women? And we've got some people testifying that are women, and there's some former ambassadors. Don't they have to go a little easy on some of the character assassinations?
Well, the people in the State Department and other international involved in international relations are very dedicated professional diplomats. They care about the foreign policy of the nation. They really don't care who the president is. They want to carry out the foreign policy, and they're upset that suddenly the president's on the phone wanting this for that, and you will do this if you'll do that, and they have all the background and the history and the professionalism.
Bill Phillips is our guest, along with Larry Woods. Well, of course, we're talking about what's going on in Washington with the impeachment hearings. Back to continue our conversation and talk a little bit about 2020 politics as well after this break.